It's Ysadora again today, and I will be covering a bit more of a witchier subject, which is going to be fun, in something really basic. It's the whole idea of why witches keep a book. And when I mean book, it's like Book of Shadows, grimoire. With me, I just like to call it my book, because there's only really one book in a witch's life. So this is mine. It's a really beautiful natural death leather book. I absolutely adore it. It's actually quite small considering a lot of people have really big books which work really well. So I thoroughly recommend if you get a big one, they work really quite nicely. So what you tend to do is, the book is really where you start sort of recording everything you start learning. So for instance, if you're starting a new spell or writing something out, you pop it in here, write down what you notice happening, everything like that. I tend to sort of try and keep it highly decorated. So I tried with my terrible attempt at calligraphy. I love eyes, so eyes had to be part of it. I also started off with talking about my main deity. If you don't have one, then obviously that's completely fine. If you tend to just believe in nature or anything like that, I find just starting off with something like this tends to really sort of keep your mind focused as far as your goals and your beliefs and bits and pieces like that. I also tend to have, there's like 3 pages of writing about the Morrigan. Oh wait, 4. So here I've got just the start of a spell. Now this is actually one of the banishing spells that I sell through my website. And this was when I was really sort of starting to write it out, starting to figure out what I wanted to do. Started writing out the little chants and bits and pieces, as well as I always love to just draw little pictures and bits and pieces to sort of really get the feel of it going. I haven't actually even finished a lot of these pages because they're just like an ongoing thing. I record all my spell bottles and the spell bags and all of the ingredients and things. That's actually really important because I find it really incredibly hard to try and remember all the ingredients of all the spells that you do. So pop all that in there, a lot of lists. The other thing I really love to do within my book is actually just copy out various tables and things of very significant things. So this one talks about colour and where it stands as far as its significance within magic, its planet, all of those sorts of things. So I do copy out a lot of these charts and bits and pieces because they really help sort of cement things in your brain as far as, you know, what colour to go for when you're doing which spell, you know, what herbs you go for, all of those sorts of things. Speaking of herbs, I also have various little herbal pages. And so I literally, if I can, get a dried sample. I love to press flowers, so I do a lot of flower pressing, put them in here. And then I add information such as your planets, the elements, the various deities that are associated with that particular herb. And then a bit of a hidden thing, a little bit of behind the scenes of like the meaning of it, those sorts of things. And as well, here's a really good point that you can actually record if you've used it in a spell and how effective you thought it was, or better ways to use it, or if you found out any other little information as you go throughout your little witchy journey. Lastly, I have a lot of really various things, like the basics of making things such as Mars water. I find writing these sorts of basics down, that even like just ingredients for spells, how to make the ingredients are really important. And because I do a lot of variants on things, I don't necessarily follow the stereotypical spell books and bits and pieces that you tend to get. I also do a lot of really different variations to spells. We have a lot of like 3 Marigna, like specialized stuff. So popping that into a book really helps out as well. Plus, if anything ever happens to me, I am really glad that this is around, because then it allows other people to sort of continue on, and even if it's not just from a business point of view, because I do have like my witch in training and everything like that, so she can continue on the business, but also just because I've done a lot of research and put a lot of time into this, so having this knowledge pop down for somebody else to take over or continue on my path is a really important thing to me. Now, you notice this is all really written in English. I don't tend to be very secretive about that. However, if need be, there is the witch's alphabet. You can find these around an awful lot. Some people swear by them for writing in their grimoire or their book, mostly because it's like the whole secrecy aspect. Especially way back when everyone was being healers in bits and pieces, they actually didn't trust each other. So that's where that whole Eye of Newt and all of that came from, is they actually coded various herbs and bits and pieces into their books. So it would actually end up being like something that sounded really grotesque, but was actually really ordinary, and it's just because witches did not trust each other. So that's one of the more hilarious things that witches tend to do. And it happens a lot. There is a lot of secrecy. A lot of witches will have their own private way of doing things and things like that. So obviously don't go poking around in other witches' books. But there's a lot of really good information out there, and there's a lot of really good people that are actually sharing their knowledge and sharing their information, which you can then go and take home and put in your own book. So that's a bit of a rough idea of the significance of a book. I'm sure there is many other points out there. It is something that is really of use. It's really amazing. So I would recommend, even if it's just a standard, if you're like in the broom closet, as they say, just get a standard exercise book. It doesn't need to be a big fancy leather piece or anything like that. Just have something that you can actually hide away and utilize for your spell knowledge. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed learning about the book, or the Book of Shadows, and I will talk to you all soon later. Thank you.